on the MegaCast as we continue to go through the COVID-19 pandemic and play the balancing game of keeping the community safe with also moving life forward and trying to save businesses, trying to save people's livelihoods, especially in industries that have been hard hit by the effects of COVID-19 beyond just the virus itself. And to talk more about that issue on the front of hotels and on restaurants, we're pleased to be joined once again by the Vice President of Government Affairs at the Michigan Restaurant and Lodging Association, John McNamara, with us on the MegaCast. John, thanks for being back with us.
Thanks for having me. Hope everyone's having a good Monday so far.
Yeah, you as well. So at this present time, restaurants are still open at full capacity. It's been that way for well over a month now, almost 2 months now, as we're approaching the month of September after that July 1st full reopening. What is the status of those restaurants? Are we starting to see a comeback of sorts in their numbers and their bottom line, or are they kind of still in the same place they were really at the beginning of July?
No, we're starting to see a comeback there. I mean, their largest challenge right now, one would be, consistent staff. Second would be the supply chain is still very, very backlogged, and that's causing prices. And then third is just sort of this, misnomer that this industry is 100% back to where it was in a pre-COVID world, and that's just simply not true.
So it's not back 100%. It has the ability to operate at regular capacity, but that's just capacity. That's just people inside the doors. So right now, for most of these restaurants, whether they are the small mom and pop restaurants or they're the chain franchises, what does 100% in this current moment look like for the majority of these restaurants?
100% looks like you're running a limited menu, but most importantly, you're running a very limited staff program. I mean, the odds that the person who served you, brunch yesterday was working a double, probably worked a double Saturday, and is probably working a double today. So they are incredibly thin on staff. A lot of them have a very, very dedicated team who want to be there and are doing their best to be there. But you can only push people so far to whereas you're going to burn them out. So we're still seeing a lot of places who will choose to close a day or two, have limited hours, have limited menus, and are still trying to just do the best they can in what is still a very uncertain world right now.
I mentioned a little bit coming out of the break. I talked a bit about finding that balance and maintaining that balance. And I feel like that's something that's got to be very important for these restaurants right now on the staffing front, because while you need to keep up with the business that's coming in, with the increased amount of people that can come into your doors each and every day and deal with the situations on the front lines, knowing that you're already short-staffed, you got to kind of have that balance there where you're providing the service that you need to provide for your customers to keep them coming back through the doors, but also not overworking your employees to the point where they are leaving the job because it's so hard to fill those positions. How are these businesses, especially the mom and pops that don't have necessarily don't have the name recognition and that kind of support, which is really all they get in that support from the big chains, how are they managing that while also balancing the need to keep their bottom line strong?
It's hard, and we're heading into college football season and kids coming back to school, and that's just going to put more people in these areas. Now, the mom and pops in general have a more loyal customer base and sort of a bit of understanding. You're seeing the bigger chains. For example, Buffalo Wild Wings, I was in one on Friday last week, and they're going to start making it so if you download the app, you can check out on your phone, right? And when you're done, and you can check out and go. I think you're going to see more options like that where technology is going to help relieve this burden. But eventually, hopefully, staffing will get somewhat back to where it was pre-COVID, but also the supply chain will catch up down the line, and you won't have a massive shortage on chicken wings, and you won't have beef prices be sky high. In fact, right now it's cheaper to buy beef it's cheaper to buy beef. Sorry, more expensive to buy beef than it is lobster.
Wow.
Lobster's cheap right now.
Wow. And in terms of that, because there is so much need across the board for restaurants, not just in Michigan, but across the U.S., and issues in the supply chain in one area of the U.S. affect the supply chain in the other area of the U.S., regardless of what is the regular livestock of the time in Michigan or Nebraska or in Texas or anywhere else. So in that sense, as you have these mom and pops, these smaller businesses that are family run, that have really for years had to keep money tight to run a business that can support their family, versus these larger chains that tend to have their systems in place. Right now, with the supply chain issues that are in place, is that competition having a greater effect on those smaller mom and pop kind of restaurant businesses than the larger chains, or is it kind of more of an egalitarian issue?
No, it's impacting the smaller independent operators more, simply because a lot of these places, it's by volume. We've seen a couple different places around, Lansing, East Lansing, where I live, who have just taken, I keep going back to chicken wings, but this is the prime example right now of disruption in the market, who have simply taken chicken wings off their menu for the time being. You've seen Wing Zone has, pivoted to Wing and Thigh Zone. You're starting to see more chicken thighs on menus in a lot more places, because those are more readily available than wings. So it's impacting the smaller ones more, but that doesn't mean that, Buffalo Wild Wings is not hurting just as bad. And in some ways more, because when you go to B-dubs, you're going for wings, most likely. So, and, we've heard cases of people running, B-dubs at times running out for, periods of time.
We're joined by John McNamara. He's the Vice President of Government Affairs with the Michigan Restaurant and Lodging Association, joining us today on the MegaCast. And on that similar note, those staffing issues that we talked about earlier are also affecting across the board these small mom and pops and these franchises and these larger chains that have that name recognition. But a lot of these businesses in other industries, and including in the restaurant industry, as they're trying to attract staffers and trying to retain staff members as well, they're providing greater incentives and providing better hourly pay as well in some cases. Are you finding that these smaller mom and pops, similar to the supply chain issue, are having a greater issue retaining employees and keeping employees and attracting new employees versus these other chains, simply because there's less of a war chest of money, necessarily, for lack of better terms, in place for them?
That's been decently egalitarian across the board. Okay. It's really tough to get. I mean, I had one board member who has 6 restaurants. He had 150 interviews scheduled and 6 people showed up for the actual interview. I have members who are offering people $50 simply to fill out an application. So, maybe they can get that phone number and convince you to try to go to work. And I want to point out that the hotels are being hit just as hard on the staffing issue as the restaurants are. We just had our summer board meeting at Traverse City, and that staff did a great job, but everyone was wearing 4 or 5 hats. The person who checked me in was pouring wine at dinner and was cleaning rooms, and that was a senior management at the hotel. This was not someone who typically does one thing or the other. So it is all hands on deck across the industry, and you're seeing owners, managers, general managers, assistant managers who are bussing tables and pouring wine simply because that's what they have to do to try to get through this.
So let's talk more about the hotel side, because we always seem to focus on the restaurant side. That seems to be what captures the headlines, what captures the stories in the news media when related to this industry, or at least to what the coverage of your organization is. And at this time, you mentioned the staffing issues are definitely in place also at hotels. How has their overall management been affected beyond just the staffing, or including the staffing too, in our current times with COVID-19?
So yeah, a lot of the times you're seeing, if you're going to be there for 3 or 4 days, you're probably going to, they're not cleaning rooms every day for sure. Now it's every other or maybe every 3rd day is when they're going in and cleaning rooms, simply because they don't have the staff to do it right now. They want to make sure people are checked in, are getting there. If you need more towels or you need something like that, they're happy to provide it. But, someone coming in and changing the sheets and making the bed in most cases is not happening every single day. And that's simply just they don't have the person power to make it happen.
And is that affecting the ability for these hotels to have greater availability there for people to come in, especially as people continue to travel and we have big events going on in various places throughout the state of Michigan?
No, it's absolutely making it harder, and it's just making it harder because you have a pent up demand for travel, largely due to, in 2020 there was very little of it available, and everyone wants to get out and everyone wants to travel this year, but there's just sometimes not the staff to make it happen. Especially in northern Michigan is being especially hard hit by this as well. In the best of times, staffing in northern Michigan is hard to do, and these past 2 years have been even harder up north. So my hats are off to everyone up north who's doing their best to make it work, and with a tourism season that part of the state desperately needs to make it through.
Yeah, our thoughts definitely with those businesses up in the UP, especially where we saw in the recent census data that was released that in the last 10 years, many counties up in the UP and in northern Michigan, the northern lower peninsula, have had significant changes in population. It has not grown. It has definitely taken a dip, and that doesn't help in a time where it's already tough enough to find and retain staff. So on that note, John McNamara, Vice President of Government Affairs with the Michigan Restaurant and Lodging Association, what should people expect when they're going to hotels in this time, because there is a short staffing situation? You mentioned that the rooms are probably not going to be cleaned out every day. It'll probably be every other day or every few days instead of every day. But how else is their experience being impacted by the current situation that these businesses are dealing with?
I mean, they're going to do their best to make your experience as best as possible. But with limited staff, there's only so much they can do. So, the gym will probably still be there, but it might not be staffed. The pool will still be there, but it might not be staffed. If it's busy, there may be a lifeguard. But it's just a group of people and group of very dedicated, hardworking people who are trying to kind of keep up with demand. And my ask is that hotel, restaurant, event, please just be patient with the staff that is there. They're tired. They're working really, really, really hard, and they're doing the best to give you the best experience possible. But it's, as I've said before, and I'll say it again on this show and many others, it's just going to take patience on everyone's part. And all I ask of you is be as patient as you can and understand they are doing the best they can. But times are still tough in the industry.
We're joined by John McNamara. He is the Vice President of Government Affairs at the Michigan Restaurant and Lodging Association. And as we continue forward in this pandemic and we continue to have the recovery sort of hit a snag in some sorts because of the current situation that we're having, how are restaurants and even hotels at this moment in time, how are they adjusting to the current situation given the slight uptick that we've had and the moderate uptick now at this point in COVID-19 cases with the Delta variant in recent weeks?
So you're going to see a lot more staff are already wearing masks, and I think you're going to see going forward even more staff wearing masks. I think you're going to see some places posting signs strongly encouraging you to wear a mask while inside. It's not going to shock me if people are going to start asking for reservations or call ahead seating in some way, shape, or form. But I think you're just going to see them try to start to plan in advance a little bit more, just so they can be ready and they can provide service. So, if you're trying to go out with, 10, 12 people, I would call ahead and just let them know and make sure they can do it and accommodate that. But you're going to see them plan, prepare, maybe space some tables. But, pre-COVID, their goal was to serve you safely. During COVID, their goal was to serve you safely. And in a post-COVID world, their goal is going to be to serve you safely. That's what this industry does. It's what we've always done, and it's what we'll continue to do. We just are going to have to do it differently.
Yeah, frustration definitely is amounting, and impatience is definitely amounting as this pandemic does continue on and grow in its timeline. And we're seeing that in other places in the U.S. Of course, today, New York City is the first major city in the U.S. to require proof of vaccination in order to dine indoors. Are you expecting in the coming weeks and the coming months that we may see some restaurants and some parts of the industry that begin to put similar requirements in place? It's not going to happen necessarily at the state level or at major city level. We haven't had any indication of that as of late here in the state of Michigan. But given what's happening in other places, given that there seems to be less of an apprehension across the board to put these mandates in place, are you expecting that the customers may see some restaurants that begin to say, we need proof of vaccination for you to enter indoors?
I think so. There's already been one more nightclub setting in Detroit that requires proof of vaccination for that. You're starting to see at some shows and some concerts that you either have to have your vaccination or you have to take a rapid COVID test at the door to get in. So no, I think you will see some businesses who simply choose to say, we definitely want you to come in and have a good time, but in order to come in and enjoy yourself, we need to see a vaccination card. And that's every individual business's right as a business owner. If they choose to do that, that's their choice. I agree with you. I don't see it happening at the state level, like you've seen in other states. But I think you definitely will see, individual business choose to do it. And I think as you move into college football season, I think you'll see, I think that's probably where that uptick might start, is starting with college football season and some businesses saying, love to have you, but got to show proof.
John McNamara with us on the MegaCast, the Vice President of Government Affairs at the Michigan Restaurant and Lodging Association. Just another minute with you, John, before we'll say goodbye today. Anything else that would be important for our audience to know that you and your organization would like to say today?
No, we appreciate everyone, continuing to dine out, take out, whichever way you're doing it, and supporting the industry. And we ask that you keep doing it. But as I said earlier, it's please be patient. They're working really, really hard. And I look forward to a day when this is truly over. I think this is a bump that everyone was expecting, and it's a bump that we'll get through. But it's going to take just more creativity and more patience.
We've got through it before, and we'll get through it again. Thank you very much, John.
Thank you.